We want to welcome Dean Kandle. Dean's the general manager at St. David's Golf Club in Wayne, Pennsylvania, in the Philly section. Prior to that, he was with Golf Business Network, and uh, we've heard a lot of great things about Dean's leadership and improving the lives of golf professionals. His talks. So we were really happy to get him on here. I know he's a busy guy. So Dean, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thanks, everybody, for the opportunity to talk to you today. I know, as Mark said, you're coming to the end of your winter-long season of education here. So I thank you all for joining me here today on what amounted to a beautiful Monday. So usually that means you probably should be out playing a few holes, getting ready for the season. So hopefully maybe we get you out of here and you can get that done this afternoon. But thanks again for taking some time to listen today and hopefully participate with some conversation at the end. So let me jump right in and share my screen here.
And Dean, while you're doing that, I just want to remind everybody too, if you all have questions for Dean or specific things you'd like to maybe have him bring up that's relevant to where he is and what he's talking about, please put them in the chat for me. I'll monitor that and pop in for Dean, so he's got the questions. So we want to make sure this is interactive as well on your end.
All right, thank you for that, Mark. Okay, so everybody see the screen there? We're good to go? Thumbs up? All right, thank you. All right, so let's jump in here. Again, today we're talking about leading and succeeding in 2023, and especially no matter what your position is. Mark was kind enough to give you a little bit of background about me. Here's a little bit more, not that we have to go through this, but as you mentioned, since January, I have taken a general manager position at St. David's, where I was for 11 years as the head golf professional, with that stint for a year in between at Golf Business Network, where I was able to focus on creating professional development programs for golf professionals, specifically in the leadership and management space, where we felt like there was a little bit of a hole in that in some of the traditional education that we've seen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So as I started to get into this space and talking about leadership, about management, about organization, it all stemmed from a question that I kept asking myself. So through those 11 years as a head golf professional, running the golf operation, I often found myself not necessarily working on the golf specific skills. Certainly that was important, and we had to focus there. I had to focus there. But the further I went along in that position, the more I kept coming back to issues and challenges around leadership, around managing the people on our team, around staying organized, and how to stay productive, and how to get all the things done that I needed to get done and take care of all the things that were on my plate. I kept coming back to these challenges around leadership and organization. And eventually I started to dive pretty deep into this. And I started to read a lot of books, listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of articles, and really study those particular topics. And as I got further into it, I decided to actually start to talk about my journey and everything that I was learning. Thought that maybe if I shared this with other golf professionals, they could benefit from it, because the more I learned, I did feel like not only the better I got at my job, but the easier things got. The lower my stress levels became, because I felt more organized and more productive. I felt like my team was operating at a higher level. So again, I started to document this in a website that I created called Golf Professional Growth. So I started writing some articles, and you can still find those on there. The web address is golfprofessionalgrowth.com. In those areas of leadership, productivity, organization, and management. But where things really started to get interesting for me was when I just, on a whim, decided, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast. And after I started the website in 2017, about a year later was when I decided, let me dive in here and see if I can get a podcast off the ground, which was really a stretch for me, not really anything that I thought I could see myself doing, but it was one of those things where I just decided to jump in. And that's where I really started to learn a lot, because through that opportunity, I had some chances to speak with some people that we all know and respect in our industry on the golf side of things, and other industry leaders outside of golf, which was really exciting for me too. So from 2018 to the end of 2022, I worked on the Getting Better Now podcast, as well as another one called the Golf Professional Growth Project. And through about, I think by the time I wrapped this up at the end of 22, maybe about 60 episodes altogether between the two shows, all asking one singular question, really, when it came down to it. What are the skills necessary in order to build long-term success in our business? So getting the chance to ask that question to leaders in our industry and outside of our industry really opened up my eyes to trying to simplify where we could focus in order to build long-term success in our business. I don't think anybody on this call is interested in not building long-term success. So where can we focus? We're going to talk about these areas today. So what this really came down to is that in our business, there are two types of skills. We have our vocational skills. So when I say vocational skills, the skills that are important in our trade, the skills that people expect you as a PGA professional to have. If you talk to anybody on the street and you say, I'm a PGA professional working at a club, or I teach at a facility, these are the things that they expect you to be good at. Obviously, playing, teaching, knowing the rules, knowing how to help somebody with their game through club fitting, just knowledge of the business. These are all things that are critical in our positions as PGA professionals. And when you're starting out in your career, especially, these are where people are going to expect you to be an expert and start building an expertise. These skills in our vocation are important as you progress. As you're working your way up the ladder, you're going to be a lot of times evaluated on your ability in these areas. And those of you that have moved up the ladder that are on this call, you know this. It's as you're coming up in the business, your ability to help somebody on the lesson tee, your ability to run successful events, your ability to understand merchandising in the golf shop, whatever, all those specific areas that are critical to being a PGA professional. These are important as you're working your way up. Now, they don't lose their importance as you move on, but they're critical as you work your way up the ladder. They are a differentiating factor. When you're sitting down in front of somebody that you want to hire you, your ability in these areas are going to be paramount to your success. But I always go back to the title of this book by Marshall Goldsmith, who says, what got you here won't get you there. So if the vocational skills are critical to us and our success, are they what are going to build long-term success in our careers? Well, by continually asking that question, I think we came to a conclusion that they're not the only thing that are going to help you, the only skills that are going to help you in building long-term success. Now, the best answer I got to this question, what are the most important skills that a golf professional needs to build success over the long term, came from Cameron Doan, the head professional at Preston Trail. Anybody that's been around Cameron can attest to his knowledge and just his overall. You learn so much just by talking to him. And if you go back, anybody that hasn't heard any of the podcasts, if you're going to listen to one episode, this is the one you want to listen to. But I encourage you to listen to them all. But Cameron's one was exceptional. So I asked him this question, and he rattled this off right away. Cameron, what are the most important skills that we need? And in a second, he said leadership, communication, and organization. And that to me just sold me on, these are the other skills that no matter what role you play in this industry, and there are more than ever. It's not just whether you want to be a head professional or you want to teach full time. Obviously, those are a couple of the biggest. No matter what position you choose in this industry, your ability in leadership, communication, and organization are the skills that are going to help you build success over the long term. Now, some of you on this call might follow Gary Vee, listen to his podcast, watch his videos. He's a great follow. He talks all the time about, hey, we don't need to call these things soft skills. These are truly the alpha skills. These are the important skills. And he's out in the business world running a multi-million-dollar marketing company. It's not his marketing ability that's going to help him build success. It's his ability in these quote unquote soft skills that are really the alpha skills. And to further this even more, there's a often cited study from the Carnegie Institute of Technology that you probably heard this before, but this always stands out whenever we bring this up. 85% of your financial success is due to your personality and ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Only 15% is due to your technical knowledge. Now, in our industry, do we focus 85% of our efforts on building our skills in communication, negotiation, and leadership? Or do we weigh way heavier on the vocational skills? I think we know the answer to that. And it's not anybody's fault. But today we're here to talk about how we can focus on these important skills to help us have long-term success, and as this slide says, your financial success, which ultimately we're all here to succeed financially in our careers as well. So we have a lot of different experience levels and ability levels on the call today. So taking those pillars of leadership, communication, and organization, let's talk a little bit about them. So starting with leadership, how to lead no matter where you are. If you're on this call and you're a 30-year director of golf or general manager, or you're a third-year assistant professional, how can you lead no matter where you are in your position? There are three areas we want to focus on. One, starting with leading yourself. What does it mean to lead yourself? Leading yourself is about really 5 things as I see it. One, always being thoughtful, right? Putting thought into your job, putting thought into your interactions with people, reflecting on your skills, reflecting on your interactions with people, reflecting on your day, your month, your year, time after time. Being intentional about the decisions that you make, the career decisions that you make, who you work for, who you surround yourself with, where you choose to educate yourself, or just being intentional about choosing to educate yourself. Being curious, always being willing to ask questions because you know that you don't have all the answers and never will. So asking more questions of people that can give you more answers to help you gain more knowledge. Courageous. I'll go back to this. You know, there are different levels of courage. Certainly, we see that all over the place these days. But just going back to my example of the podcast, that was not something that really came naturally to me or was comfortable to do at all. And it was nerve-wracking to put it out there for sure. Any of you that have created content and put it out there, for some of us, that can really be pretty challenging to do. So it took a little bit of courage on my part to put that out there, and ultimately have been able to reap some nice rewards and increase my network and expand my knowledge to levels that I never thought were going to be possible. So to me, that's one example of being courageous. What can you do to be a little bit more courageous in what you're doing inside and outside of work? And then building self-awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit more about self-awareness. Now, Kat Cole is a former CEO of some big food brands, and she was on a podcast that I always listen to with Ryan Hawk called The Learning Leader. I was able to have Ryan on one of my episodes, which was a real treat to me. But when I asked him, and when other people ask him, who's the best guest you ever had, and he's had nearly 400 episodes, he goes back to Kat Cole. And this quote always comes up: the best aspiring leaders combine courage and confidence with curiosity and humility. So it's this balance, courage and confidence. Like too much courage and too much confidence, if that outweighs your curiosity and especially your humility, that can hurt you in your building your leadership ability and hurt you as you aspire either up the ranks or aspire to stay in your position for a long time. Balancing courage and confidence with curiosity and humility, easier said than done, certainly something to keep in mind, because if we tip those scales too much in one direction than the other, it's definitely going to hurt us over time. So let's talk about self-awareness a little bit. We've all heard about self-awareness, and we all kind of understand the basic concept of it, but diving a little bit deeper, there are two types of self-awareness. Internal, so this is usually what we think of, our own internal view of ourselves, understanding how we act, understanding our emotions, understanding how we respond to stressful situations, how we respond to positive situations. And then external is understanding people's view of us. So our own awareness of how people view us. That's certainly tougher to understand than just understanding how we are internally. But I think as golfers, we've all had to try to understand how we respond internally, having that self-awareness on the golf course of understanding how we react after a bad shot or after a bad hole or after a bad round versus how we react when we hit a good shot or we make a couple birdies. That's an example of self-awareness, but we need to use that in our jobs as well. So understanding that from internal basis and also external, how people view us. Looking at this quote from Harvard Business Review, research suggests that we see ourselves clearly, that when we see ourselves clear, we're more confident and creative, make better decisions, build better relationships, and communicate more effectively. We're better workers who get more promotions. That's how important self-awareness is. So if you want to make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and communicate more effectively, can anybody say that those aren't some important things no matter what position you have in this industry? Then self-awareness is key. So how do we cultivate more self-awareness? One is just paying attention. So understanding the wake that you leave behind. What are the reactions that you're getting from people in conversations? If you lead a team, what reactions do you get from your team when you're in a team meeting or when you bring a directive down that you'd like to implement? What kind of reaction do you get when you have one-on-one with a team member and you're having a tough conversation? What kind of reaction do you get when you're talking to a member maybe about a tough situation like slow play or a dress code? What kind of reaction do you get? Understanding those and paying attention to those and then being able to react is how we're going to build self-awareness, understanding how people view us. Also, one of the toughest things, but one of the most productive ways that you can build your self-awareness is asking for feedback. Start with people you know and trust. Start with people that are on your team. Start with people that you work with. Asking them to give you honest feedback about maybe why people react to you one way in certain situations instead of the way that you want them to. There are also tools that you can use. I'm a consultant with the Predictive Index. A lot of you have probably gone through maybe job searches with PGA of America or other firms that have used Predictive Index or know somebody that uses it. That's just one way. There are tons of personality profile tools out there. Use those to understand more about who you are and how and why you react certain ways in certain situations. Building our self-awareness is one of the top ways that we can become better leaders. Number two is generating influence as a leader. Now, you may say, hey, how can I generate influence in my position? I'm the second assistant and I don't have the responsibility. I don't make decisions at my club or on my team. Everybody on this call, in one way or another, has an opportunity to influence something in your position. It may be that even if you're just starting out and you're an entry-level assistant and you spend a lot of your time answering the phone, standing at the counter, well, guess what? You have the ability to influence that counter. You have the ability to answer what happens when people call the golf shop. You have the ability to influence a junior golf program, a women's golf program, a certain display area in the golf shop. Leadership is influence, as John Maxwell says. You do not need a leadership title or a leadership position in order to make an impact. Your ability to impact change in people, processes, and systems for the betterment of individuals. Who doesn't have an opportunity, big or small, in their position to impact systems, processes, or change in people for the betterment of individuals? When you recognize this and that you have influence, you're taking a leadership position. So how can you grow your influence no matter where you are? First and foremost, seek opportunities to take on responsibility. The person that puts their hand up and says yes when their supervisor says, can somebody take this on? That's taking on an opportunity to grow your influence because now you just took on responsibility. And as I say here, every responsibility you accept is an opportunity for your influence to grow. This is one time in your life where it's probably okay, I think, to be selfish. If you're the one that keeps putting your hand up, guess what? You're the one that's gaining more responsibility. You're the one that's gaining more of a chance to make an impact and to grow your influence. And leadership is influence. As Craig Rochelle, one of my favorite leadership experts, says, be willing to do what others won't so you can have influence others don't. Those of you working your way up the ladder, anybody on this call who's not in a position where they ultimately want to be willing to do what others won't so you can have influence others don't. Number two, think like an owner. And this is a similar mindset. But if you owned the facility that you walk into every day, how would your mindset change if it were your dollars that were being spent or your opportunities? So just because you're not an owner doesn't mean you can't think like an owner, which means taking initiative to impact change, create improvements, whatever it may be at your facility, to grow your influence. Maybe you see something through your lens that nobody else sees. And maybe that's an opportunity to implement an improvement or a change at your facility that nobody's thought of before. Now, maybe you throw it out there and nothing happens that time, but doesn't mean you stop. If you're thinking like an owner on the job, you're always looking for opportunities for improvement. When you can implement improvements, you grow your influence and you grow your leadership. Number three, in growing your leadership, no matter where you are, is creating followers. Now, today, oftentimes when we think about followers, we think about followers in social media. It's the number one time we hear that term. But thinking about followers in a traditional sense. If you're going to lead, you need followers. If nobody's following you, you're not leading. So what can you influence in order to gain followers? Let's go back to our example of an entry-level assistant. You might say, how am I going to have anybody following me? Well, what do you do where you're dealing with people around your facility where you can get them following you looking to you as a resource, as an expert. Again, maybe you're starting out helping out in the junior golf program. Are there junior golfers in the program that are going to look to you, that are going to follow your lead? Probably, hopefully. Are there people in a group that you take over, that you have responsibility for on a weekly basis, whether it's a ladies group or a men's league, a senior group of golfers? That's an opportunity to have people following you. That's an opportunity to create influence. Now, for those of you that are in management and leadership positions, you have people following you because they agree to come and work for you. Why do they agree to come and work for you? Ultimately, we can't forget this. It's because of their prospects of a better future that they hope to get by being with you. The reason people follow you is for the prospects of a better future, whether it's somebody that works for you, that wants to move up in their career or make more money, or how about somebody that comes to your lesson team? It's for the prospect of a better future, because a better golf game gives them a better future. So big or small, you can create followers. Now, how do we do this? First one's easy, just takes effort. People will only be interested in you when you show interest in them. Don't expect people to follow you if you don't show interest in them. And two, become a trusted advisor. This goes back to a lot of our expertise in the vocational skills and why those are so important as we move into leadership positions. Being a trusted advisor means somebody that people come to for help, for guidance, just like you might go to a financial advisor or a doctor that you know and trust. Be somebody that people look to at your facility as a trusted advisor when you have their best interests in mind. Do you hope that your financial advisor has your best interests in mind and not just theirs? Do you hope that your doctor has your best interest in mind? We can take that same mindset while we're not dealing with the gravity of people's overall financial success or their health. They're still coming to us, for their needs. And we have the opportunity to be a trusted advisor. Trusted advisor recommends the right thing for that person at the right time. A trusted advisor on the lesson tee would say in a club fitting that, hey, maybe a new driver isn't going to be what fixes your game here, but I can line you up with our director of instruction to help you with some lessons, rather than just trying to sell a club because it might help you financially. That's an example of being a trusted advisor. And that's how we gain followers. And by focusing on creating followers, you put the focus on others instead of yourself. So by trying to impact others, your focus is outward, not just on yourself inwardly as a leader. And this isn't just with your members. We have to keep this in mind that no matter who we are, this is important and critical for our coworkers. That our coworkers expect us to act the same way, right? You can have coworkers follow you. You can be a trusted advisor for your coworkers. And all that's important in order of being a part of a successful team. So lastly, when we're talking about leadership here, and especially anybody who's not at the top of your organization, it's probably not anybody on this call that doesn't report to somebody. Right? So again, how can we lead no matter what our position is? Lastly here is support your leader, whoever that may be. Maybe it's your head professional, maybe it's the general manager, maybe it's the president of the club or the owner of the facility. Our goal should be to be a superstar. And guess what? Superstars make progress in their career because they support their leader. Always express a desire to improve. Superstars always understand your boss's challenges, or try to understand your boss's challenges, and letting your boss know, hey, I understand this might be tough for you. And then saying, how can I help? How can I take work off your plate in order so you can focus on what's more important? Superstar also displays integrity by doing what you say you're going to do. Don't take work off your boss's plate and then not get it done. Integrity means doing what you say you're going to do. And then showing a commitment to your boss, to your company. Being dependable, showing up on time, working with accuracy, and meeting your goals and standards. And what I think is critical, and this isn't just for anybody who's leading up, this is for leaders. And if there's any takeaway that you get from today, this is a big one, is practicing vulnerability, admitting mistakes, understanding weaknesses, admitting failures, and recognizing the need to do better next time. As a supervisor looks at you, understanding that somebody on your team is willing to admit mistakes and understand their weaknesses, that's somebody that you want to nurture and help. That's somebody that you want to push upwards and bring along with you. That's somebody who's got the right mindset to improve. Now, as leaders, when we do that, it builds trust with our team. When we admit our weaknesses, we admit our failures, when we know where we may struggle, where we need help, that builds trust on your team. And trust is the number one maker of a strong team. And we do that by expressing vulnerability. So we're talking about the skills that lead to long-term success in our careers. That's a little bit on leadership. Obviously, leadership could go on and on and on. I want to just talk a little bit about organization. We're going to skip communication because that's a whole nother thing in itself. But let's talk quickly about organization, then we can take some questions if we have any. So organization is really, when it comes down to it, this is what I call productivity, or a lot of people call time management. So some people are just inherently better at this than others. Some people struggle with this, but everybody needs to focus on this, no matter what your position is, in order to succeed in this business. This can't be a nice to have. Getting through, working your way up the ladder in this business, and then staying in a position and being successful. Organization and productivity can't be something that just falls by the wayside. So why is this so important? This isn't just about having the latest and greatest tools and apps in order to stay organized, and the coolest to-do list, or the fanciest planner that helps you stay organized. This is really about relationships in our business. People that are organized and productive, they meet deadlines. People that are organized and productive, people can trust, because you get done what you say you're going to get done. You meet the standards that are expected of you time and time again because you're organized and productive. And over time, that builds trust. People that have the right systems in place build trust. It's really hard for people to trust you if they don't know if that order they place with you is going to fall through the cracks, or if you're going to remember that you scheduled a lesson with them, or whatever it may be. This is that important that it builds relationships, and anybody that's been in this business long enough will tell you that we're in a relationship business, and organization is critical in order to building relationships. So this time management productivity is something I've studied a lot. It's the first course that I was able to teach to fellow PGA professionals even before I was at GBN. So here are 4 of what I think is just some of the easiest and most important tactics that you can implement tomorrow in your job in order to improve your organization and your productivity. Let's start with the rule of 3. So the rule of 3 says, take 3 important priorities per day. Put them on your to-do list. And no matter what, make sure you get those 3 things done every day. Just 3. I think that's the coolest thing about this rule is that it's only 3. Can you get 3 important things done every day? Now, it's not just 3 tasks. It's 3 important priorities. And we'll talk a little bit about priorities in number 4. But can you accomplish 3 tasks that are 3 priorities of you that you need to get done every day? Think about that. If you can get 3 things done every day, 5, 6, 7 days a week, how that stacks up and builds over time, and how productive and successful you can be 3 tasks at a time, 3 tasks at a time. Because guess what? Putting 50 things on your to-do list and thinking you're going to get them done tomorrow, it's not going to happen. Just going to lead to stress, more stress. Just going to lead to you feeling like you're not getting enough things done. So start with the rule of 3 and write those 3 important things on your list for tomorrow. Get them accomplished, and then the next day come back and get 3 more done. Now, when it comes to to-do lists and calendars, they all work together. And one of the systems I like to implement, especially as I get busier and busier in the season, is Calendar Zero. Now, anybody that's ever heard of zero-based budgeting in your personal finances means you give every dollar a job. So however much money you make, you give every dollar a job. Now, take your day, your calendar, and let's just use an 8-hour day. How do you give all the slots on your calendar a job? Now, I just said, hey, don't put 50 different things on your calendar, but you take the 3 things that you want to get done first, find a block on your calendar, and give yourself enough time on your calendar to get those done. These are 3 important things. That's not checking your email. That's not walking around the club to say hello. That's not all the other ancillary things that we do in a day. You find a block on your calendar for those 3 important things, and then fill in all the other things that you do throughout the day. Any of you in a management position, you know that you're going to have people popping in to see you. You're going to have people on your team that you need to have conversations with. Then start filling those in your calendar. Give yourself some nice blocks where you give yourself enough time to get these things done, and fill up your day with your priorities and everything that you want to get done. Then you're not leaving it to chance. You have a plan to get things accomplished in your day, especially the busier you are. Mark, I'm sure your day's probably full with, lessons from start to finish a lot of times. How do you fit in scheduling? How do you fit in communicating with your students? How do you fit all these other things in that you have to do, right? Having a plan, we do that through Calendar Zero. It takes planning, it takes being intentional, which is part of leading yourself, but it helps lower our stress levels and make sure that we're getting everything done. Now, number 3 here, getting clear on next actions. A lot of times, if you go on somebody's desk or you go into somebody's to-do list, what you see are just little words. They're usually just reminders. Maybe one might say golf bag, and another one might say lesson, right? We have these Post-it notes and things all over our desks or wherever our workstation is to tell us things. Well, let's take this golf bag example. Let's say what I really need to do is I need to return a golf bag for a member because it's damaged. The next action for that task is not golf bag. Maybe the next action is get an RA number in order to then package up the golf bag and send it back. So getting clear on next actions means asking, what is the next action that I need to take in order to move this thing forward? So I need to return a golf bag. What's the next action that I need to take? Maybe it's finding a box. Maybe it's printing out a label. Maybe it's getting the RA number. It seems simple or maybe tedious, but the more complicated and the more complex your tasks become, getting clear on the next actions promotes action takes less energy to think about what I need to do next and keeps me moving at a faster pace and helps me be more productive. I know for me that when I start procrastinating on something, 9 times out of 10, it's because I haven't defined what I need to do next. Maybe I do this at home all the time, and my wife hates it. But when I procrastinate on a home project, it's usually because I don't know how to fix it. And I need to find out what the first step is in order to get this thing moving along. So getting clear on next actions. Your to-do list is really a next action list. It should start with an action word and then the next step that you need to take in order to move this thing forward. And number 4, in defining our priorities. Really, when it comes to time management, we can call it time management or organization. Really, what it comes down to is priority management. So I always take people, whether it's from a leadership standpoint or a time management standpoint, I always ask people to define their 3 R's. Define your role, your responsibilities, and your results. Why is this important to define? Well, because when you go to pick out the 3 things you're going to put on your list for tomorrow, it should be the 3 things that are most important to your success on the job and the success of your facility and the people around you. So when you understand your role and responsibilities and results, your priorities become clear. And you can focus your time, your energy, and your efforts on the priorities that matter most. So what do I mean by role, responsibilities, and results? Your role are all the hats that you wear at your club. If you're a PGA professional working at a club in a more traditional role, you know that you wear many hats. You're a tournament administrator, you're a merchandiser, you're a teacher and a coach, you're a junior golf mentor. Some of you are managers. Some of you own the shop, you're a business owner, you're a communicator, you're a marketer, you're a membership. Some of you are involved in managing your membership. So what are all those roles, all the hats that you wear at your facility, putting those on paper? And then what are the responsibilities, the actual tasks that you do on a daily basis that are associated with each one of those roles? As a tournament administrator, you're in charge of the men's tournament program. So you run these events. As a teacher, you're in charge of creating programs for this segment of players, whatever it may be. And then most importantly, what are the outcomes from those tasks that you do that you're expected to produce? If you're a tournament administrator, what are the results that are actually supposed to come from your efforts in running tournaments at your club? If you're a teacher and a coach, what are the results that are supposed to come out of your efforts on the lesson tee, whether in individual or group instruction? Now, a lot of times we have to talk to our supervisors, the people that we report to, in order to find out what those results are and get specific on what those are. If you're the director of golf, ask your club president, your general manager, what results are most important that I'm responsible for? Sometimes flip it around. If I were to stop doing this, what would be the most important, the biggest hole that would be left if I stopped doing X or Y? Because we're busy during the day and it's hard to get everything done. But when you're focusing on what matters most, you have the biggest opportunity to make the widest impact possible, to grow your influence, to grow your leadership, and ultimately succeed no matter where you are. So as I said, we won't go into communication. We'll leave that for another time because it's such a huge topic in itself. It encompasses so much. But just understanding these 3 tenets, these 3 pillars, where am I as a leader? Where are my organizational skills? And where are my communication skills? And how do they impact me on a daily basis? And using those as the foundation, calling them the foundational skills to build a successful career. Now, As we mentioned before, I spent last year working with Golf Business Network, and I'm fortunate to be able to still have a partnership with them where I run a leadership development program, get a cohort of people throughout the year. This year we had a cohort in the fall. We just finished the winter cohort of our Leadership Accelerator program. And coming in fall 23, as things slow down and people get some time, we'll have our next cohort of the Leadership Accelerator program. This is something that I spent the entire year of 2022 putting together. It's really exciting and fun to do, to help people build their leadership skills and help them on their leadership journey. We work on what I define as the core four leadership. These are your leadership competence, connection, culture, and communication. And each one of those is a live session that we do over 4 weeks. And then what I think is the most important part of this program are the accountability exercises, as I call them. Those are follow-up exercises that come at the end of the program, so that it's not just, hey, listen to a seminar and feel good about it for a day or two when you're back at work. These are actually helping people implement what they learn on the job in order to build better leaders, because I believe that's what ultimately can help our industry succeed into the future. So you can learn more about that just by simply connect with me on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you on there. I'm on there a lot. You can also follow announcements that I might have about the Leadership Accelerator program or other programs. And then those will also be posted and announced through the GBN LinkedIn page as well. So if you're not on LinkedIn there, just connect with me. That'd be great. And then if you haven't caught up with the podcasts, again, there are a lot of industry experts, people that we all know and respect, that I've had the opportunity to speak to on there, from Seth Waugh and Susie Whaley. And I mentioned Cameron Doan. Go back and listen to that. Some of this also came from Tony Pancake at Crooked Stick, who was a great episode. There's just so many to mention, but go back and listen to those, and hopefully they help you, because I know that having those conversations has just helped me drastically over the years. So with that, thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Real quick question, Dean, before we wrap it up. Just
Yeah.
since you're talking about leadership, and I was taking a lot of notes, honestly, on the organization part, because that's a struggle for me.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, with lesson time and then trying to work in with 2 kids and all that other stuff around it.
Yep.
So, but I'm just curious, because we've had a lot of discussions on this stuff. Just your thoughts on the whole hiring situation in our industry at this point. I mean, obviously, leadership is important. We got to have people to lead, and finding them is a little bit more challenging these days than it's ever been. Just your thoughts a little bit, maybe, on that as a general manager.
Yeah. And I had a lot of experience with this. The other thing that I was doing last year with GBN was doing a lot of recruiting. And in fact, we started a service, as a lot of people were probably getting my emails throughout last year, and especially last fall. Saw that we picked up and we were doing recruiting for assistant professionals specifically, and trying to help clubs in that area. What I saw through that process is that the good news is that we're seeing significant increases in compensation levels and the schedules that are offered. That's the good news, because when you ask that question, and I asked it plenty last year and even prior to that, asking assistants or people in the industry, where we need to get better. First and foremost, it was compensation, and it was work-life balance. So the good news is, in a lot of places, that it has taken, that's going in the right direction. The tough news is that still wasn't bringing people flocking back or into the industry. We found a lot of people that weren't changing jobs. They were staying at their facilities, hopefully because the facilities offered them a reason to stay. And I think that's the feedback I was getting, that, hey, we'll give you X thousand more dollars to stay, because we don't think that we can replace you if you do leave. So that's the good news for assistants. Secondly, though, and this is where I think leadership comes in, it's a great point that we need people to lead, but what is the impact that leadership or lack of leadership has had on our industry over time? Now, we have so many great leaders in our industry. We have this culture of mentorship that is really a strength of our industry. But when you talk about reasons why a lot of people got out of the business, the feedback I've gotten sometimes is that they, weren't getting the support from their leader that they needed. That's a slower ship to turn around, right? So we can flip the switch, and a lot of clubs have, on compensation and work-life balance, and getting and making that better. But over time, in as many facilities as possible, we need strong leaders that understand what it means, to be caring, empathetic, and effective leaders for their people in order to keep people in this business. I have hopes that some of the people that don't want to, that have left golf, maybe will come back, or that are considering other businesses because they go to the corporate world and realize that that isn't all it's cracked up to be, and that, hey, working at the golf course isn't such a bad thing. But as leaders, we need to make it as great of a job as we possibly can. And compensation and schedule is only one thing. Because if you have a bunch of people on your team that are just waiting for their next paycheck or waiting for their day off, and that's what makes them excited because they don't like being there, then that's a leadership hole that we need to fill.
No, that's great, Dean. Thanks. And well said. I mean, I think there's a circle to it, and we got to connect it on all ends. So I understand what you're saying there. Real quick, everybody, before we say thanks to Dean and let him go, since you talked about the leadership thing, I'll use that as a jumping point, a segue to remind some of you. We mentioned this at the section meeting for those of you who are there, but I want to give anybody who's a GM, director of golf, head pro, a heads up that you will soon be seeing an email very soon here about our associate development program that we're doing for those who have not passed the playing ability test. We are hosting 3 golf half-day golf schools, if you will, in each chapter. Those are going to be free to those individuals to sign up. We can't take everybody, but we've got 3 teachers. I'm in the north, and we've got teachers in central and south. We're working on the dates for those, just tweaking the last date here today, and hopefully that letter and information will get out to all of you. We'll be making those individuals aware of the situation and that this is open to them. But obviously, as leaders, see what I did there, Dean?
Thank you.
You all have to give them the time off to go do it. If we want to keep people in the industry and keep our assistants in here, we got to give them the support they need to become PGA members. So, needless to say, this is a program we're hoping to get off the ground and do well with, and make it bigger, and then have other sections copy what we do. So we're really hoping that's going to be the focus for us. So please be on the lookout for that coming out very shortly, because we're coming up on it fast. Crazily enough. Also, March 21st, we have an in-person junior academy building session with Keith Robertson at Peak Golf Fitness in Rockville. It's 10 to 12, 2 hours. If you don't know Keith, he's a really under the radar and really good instructor. So please make sure you sign up on mapga.com for that. It's an in-person 2-hour. You'll learn a lot, I promise you, from Keith. And just an advance heads up, because time flies, May 1st, Caves Valley, Bernie's going to be hosting his annual seminar at Caves. It should be a great event. He's still working on the details, but Bernie always pulls out the big guns for those. And those events are generally not massive signups available because of space availability at Caves and the Performance Center. So be on the lookout and jump on it when you get it. Beyond that, I want to thank everybody for joining today and for all the other education events. We're always looking for your feedback with everything, so we really appreciate it. And most of all, Dean, thanks very much for your time today. We really appreciate you
My
not going out
pleasure.
in the warm weather and
Yeah,
staying with us here. We appreciate it, man. Thanks so much.
my pleasure. Thanks everybody for joining me today. Best of luck. Have a great season.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Enjoy the weather or your day off. See ya.